In this lesson, we will add a null object to control the snowflakes to make them look like they are falling from the sky. We will also add some variation to the snowflake's rotation and learn what the limits of using a null as a control are. Okay, so one of the layer types that we haven't talked about adding yet is the null object. So if I come up here to Layer and go to New, we see that this is the fifth option down there, so right beneath Camera. So just go ahead and click that so it adds that null to your stacking order. And you also want to make sure that you're inside of this snowflakes comp that we were in the last lesson. So the null object that I've created just defaults to being a 2D object. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to a 3D layer, just like my snowflake layers that I've created. And then I'm going to move it down kind of below the rest of my layers. So just there where it's just off of the composition area. So the way that I use the null to move these objects is very similar to the way that we've been doing parenting in our previous lessons. In fact, it's exactly the same. It's just lots of objects being parented to one. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of my snowflake layers. So you can just select that top one, hold Shift, and then select the bottom one to have all of those in your selection. And then you can grab the pick whip from any one of these and drag it up to the null object. And you see that because we had all those layers selected, all of the parent options there changed from none to null 1. So now if I move this null object around, it's going to move all of my snowflakes. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And then we're going to set up a little animation to animate this null to. So I'm going to do a really simple animation where the null simply animates from the position that it's in now over about 4 seconds to animate down so the snowflakes have completely moved out of view. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the position of that null. So select that, hit the P key, and we'll go ahead and set our first key there on that first keyframe. Then we'll move forward to about 4 seconds, and then I'm just going to grab that Y handle and push that down so until all the snowflakes are out of view. And then I'm going to grab that work area and just trim that back a little bit and hit the 0 key on my number pad so we can watch a quick RAM preview of the animation we've created. And one of the things I want you to pay attention to is that the layers that are further back in Z space take a longer time to exit off of the composition. So that gives us that phenomenon, that parallax, that objects further away move more slowly than objects closer. And in the same way, this snowflake right here, it's going to pop back up in a moment, exits off our screen very quickly because it's very close to where our camera would be. So pretty interesting just that we can animate this one null object, and with all of our layers parented to it, we only have to set up 2 keyframes to create this pretty complex animation. Now, what if I want my snowflakes to rotate as well? I can also set this up using the same null that we already have them all parented to. So with that null selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key and hit the R key. So why am I holding Shift while I'm doing that? That's going to bring up the orientation and rotation properties in conjunction with the position property that I already have open. So I'm able to see those keys that I've already set as well as open up a new property. So I like doing this whenever I want to be able to see those keyframes to set them up along with the keyframes that already exist. So let's go ahead and add some Y rotation to this. So I'm just going to select that or hit that stopwatch for the Y rotation, and then we'll move forward and hold Shift right there at that at the 4 second mark and really just intersect the other keyframe that we've already set up. And I'm going to say that I want this to spin around 1.5 times. So I can go ahead and just type in 1.5 right there. And that's going to put a 1 in the 1 times and change that second value there to 180 so that we get that half value. Now let's go ahead and hit the 0 key just to watch a quick RAM preview, and you'll see how this is animating. Now, you may not have anticipated that it was going to rotate in this way. You might have wanted the snowflakes to simply rotate on their individual axes, but that can't happen whenever we have them parented and we're choosing the parenting route to animate those nulls, or to animate those snowflakes with that null. So if we want them to animate on their axes individually, we'll have to set up keyframes for each snowflake. Now, this may sound like that is going to be something difficult for us to do, but because we took the time initially to change the rotation just slightly on all of these snowflakes, it's not going to be that difficult. So I'm going to do it really all at the same time with all of my layers selected. So go ahead and select all the snowflake layers, not the null object, and hit that R key to bring that up. I'm going to rotate these on the y-axis, so you can go ahead and hit that Y stopwatch where that's at, and then we'll move forward to that last key, and we'll just push this forward to, let's say, 1 rotation. And that's going to add 1 rotation for all of the snowflakes. And now we'll watch a rain preview and see how this has changed it. You can see that there's just a little bit more spin on each of those snowflakes. So if I want this to be even more varied, I can come in here and on this first key where we have that Y rotation, maybe I'll just push that forward just a little bit. And actually, you want to make sure that you're only changing the rotation on the snowflakes, not on the null itself. So just come in here and change each one a little bit so that it's just starting at a slightly different point from the rest of those snowflakes. And you don't even have to do it on each one. You can just do it maybe every other one or so. Just coming in there and changing that second value that you see is sitting at 0 right now. So I'm going to bring that down there, and we can watch a quick rain preview of that and see how that changes. Now, if you feel like this is too extreme and there is just too much rotation on the snowflakes, we can come in and change the rotation for the null object. So maybe we don't want that to rotate around 1 full time. So maybe we only want it to rotate a half turn. So I can just come in there, delete that 1, and change that to a 0. So now it's only going to rotate a half turn for the whole composition of snowflakes. So I'll do another quick rain preview. And you can see that that is maybe just a little bit easier on the eyes. It's not spinning quite so crazily. And even still, with your current time indicator on that same keyframe, you could just drag this back a little bit more so it will only rotate maybe something like 45 degrees. And now if we watch a rain preview of that, even slower. And this looks a little bit more natural, so you can definitely see those spinning on their individual axes as well as just a slight turn on the whole composition. So now all of our snowflakes are rotating around that null and on their own axes, as well as following the position of the null.